Okay, year 11, so we're on to video 14. This is the last video on the Germany course that you will have to watch, and the final thing we're going to end on is on the treatment of Jewish people in Nazi Germany. It's important, we've had a previous video on the Christian faith, but actually the treatment of Jews deserves its whole own video because it's such an important part of your course. There's a very strong chance that in your exam in the summer that you actually might get a question that focuses purely on Jewish people and the treatment of Jews. So I'm going to go through some key landmark moments in terms of how the Nazis dealt with the Jewish problem as they caused it, and specify some of the areas where it could be useful for an exam. So to begin with, before we even look at the problem or the issue of Jewish people according to the Nazis, we have to first think about what the Germans actually believed made the perfect race. They called it the master race. The master race was this idea of a perfect human, blonde hair, blue eyes, from a Germanic area, the Aryan race, A-R-Y-A-N, if you're looking to spell that. Now the Aryan race was the ideal person, and if you were not part of that group, you were seen as a subhuman, or Untermenschen. People in that group included Jews, gypsies, disabled people. Essentially, Germany wanted to become, or the Nazis wanted the world eventually to be full of people who were from a Germanic area, had that blonde hair, blue eyes, or something, or purely had strong heritage, where there was no physical disability, lots of children, things like that. So we've talked about the master race, we've talked about the Untermenschen, the subhumans, but actually let's get on to the fundamental important points about the Jewish question. So we'll start in 1933 when the Nazis are elected, and what we'll do is we'll go on a journey all the way through to the end of World War II, and we'll see how that journey develops, how the treatment of towards Jewish people changed, it intensified, and we'll talk about the effects of some of the policies. First of all, we'll start off in 1933 then with some of the laws that were introduced. 1933, the Nazis, once in power, start introducing some laws which they would say would subtly enforce the idea of the master race. Some of those laws included banning Jewish people from sports clubs, banning them from certain jobs like lawyers, and petty laws that are in place to try and remove Jewish people from everyday life, or trying to remove them from the everyday life of people who weren't Jewish, trying to remove them from society in some ways. That's an idea of petty racism, petty laws in place to kind of take them away from society, perhaps to fuel some of those ideas from the population that Jewish people are subhuman. 1934, we then start getting the Yellow Star of David put on doors of shops and businesses owned by Jewish people, again intensifying. We've gone from laws separating them from society to actually marking certain businesses to show that you're saying these people are different. 1935 is one of the big ones. You must understand this law that I'm about to talk to you about in 1935, because in an exam you could get a question that purely focuses on this event, or wants you to compare this event I'm about to speak about with another event later on. 1935 are the Nuremberg Laws. The Nuremberg Laws are a landmark moment in the treatment of Jewish people. The Nuremberg Laws remove the citizenship, or German citizenship, from Jewish people. So Jewish people are no longer German citizens. Once you are no longer a German citizen, any law essentially can be passed against you, or can be a law different from other Germans can be passed against you, because you are no longer subject to the same rights as everybody else. You are now almost a person not wanted by the state. You are different from everybody else, not just by the little petty laws now, but a landmark law. Now, not being a citizen anymore and removing all those rights means that there can be an intensity, or an increase in intensity, of laws against you as a race. So laws follow that ban marriages between Jews and non-Jews, adding Israel or Sarah as a middle name for all Jewish people to make them seem the same. Essentially, once the Nuremberg laws in place, they can be treated differently and almost without as much questioning, because they are no longer German citizens. So a crucial law we've seen step up to intensely say these people are not welcome. We then develop a few more years of several laws being passed, and until we come to a second crucial moment, another one that you must understand. In 1938, we have Kristallnacht, Night of the Broken Glass, a landmark moment towards the end of 1938, where we've gone from laws being passed against Jews to violence for the first time. Upright, stand-out violence against Jewish people. The Night of the Broken Glass was published in newspapers to attack or to show your anger towards the Jewish population after a Jew had killed a German in Paris. And a reaction was from the newspapers to intensify, send out propaganda to make people go against Jews. Started off or springed up by a lot of the SA. Jewish shops are destroyed or looted. Synagogues are burnt down. 100 Jewish people die. 20,000 are sent to concentration camps. Businesses are destroyed. Lives are destroyed. And we've gone from having laws separating them from society in 1938. We've now got violent action. People are openly against Jewish people and nobody does anything about it. Actually, it's advocated by the Nazi government, by the newspapers. People feel it is okay to be aggressive towards Jewish people. We have this intense step up from the laws to now the violence. In an exam, you could get asked to compare what had more of an effect on Jewish people, the Nuremberg laws or Kristallnacht. You could argue putting the laws in place first of all made sure it set the scene for people to be aggressive and not question it, but you could say this, the violence steps forward the treatment of Jewish people to what it's eventually going to become, which we all know is the final solution. After 1938, in the horrible events of the Night of the Broken Glass, we then have, in 1939, curfews put on Jewish people, and one of our other landmark moments, 1940, the decision to build ghettos around Germany and the invaded areas. Ghettos were small walled-off areas as part of a city. One of the most famous is Warsaw, where part of the city is walled off for all Jewish people to live. Cramped conditions, disease spreads, disease is rife in these areas. People were living on starvation rations, so about 184 calories a day, tiny amounts. Starvation, disease. These places are the most terrible places on planet Earth that you could possibly imagine. Now, these ghettos are a way of separating Jews completely from society and also has this effect of killing them off almost. Now, after the ghettos and these horrible conditions, that is not the only thing that happens during the war towards Jewish people. We also have in 1941 the establishment of the Einsatzgruppen, the murder squads that travel through Eastern Europe, the occupied territories, killing Jewish people, rounding them up, taking them to mass graves that they dig themselves, and shooting people. Again, another step up towards direct murder. And then in 1942, another event you must understand. You must understand for your course, but you must understand as a pure part of the human race, really. 1942, the final solution. Now, the final solution is decided at the Wannsee Conference. Now, in your exam, it might confuse you if it says compare two events and asks you to compare the Nuremberg laws with the Wannsee Conference. The Wannsee Conference is where the decision is made in 1942 to follow the final solution. The final solution to the Jewish problem, which is the decision to exterminate all Jewish people in concentration camps or work camps. That decision goes through, and we see, you may have been or read a lot about camps like Auschwitz, but that decision to mass transit Jewish people across Europe to concentration camps like Auschwitz, send some to work, but a lot of people sent straight to their death in the gas chambers. 6 million Jewish people are killed in what's known as the Holocaust in these concentration camps. A hugely important event to understand, but also we can see where the journey has gone from petty laws in 1932 to extermination in 1942. So a huge landmark moment, and we can look through our journey one more time. 1933, starting up with laws. 1935, the Nuremberg laws, the real step up on removing rights completely. 1938, the first signs of real aggression that's openly advocated by the Nazi Party. 1940, that aggression then turns into complete separation and complete dire treatment, which then turns into murder squads in 1941, and 1942, the decision to exterminate all Jewish people. So that journey takes us through the life of Jewish people, and in your next video we'll be moving on to the second part of paper 1, but hopefully you've understood the journey of a Jewish person through Nazi Germany.